Welcome to episode number 9, where Chad and I are going to be discussing when to go at business alone and when to go at it as a team. All right, welcome to episode 9. We are going to talk about a really, really difficult but good topic, and that is in business, when to partner up.
Yeah, and not only when to partner up, but when is a partnership working? When is it not working? You and I have both had, we were talking about this, off air, like you and I have both had great partners, still have business partners. We've had partnerships that haven't worked out, and those can be difficult, but before we talk into like partnerships and our experiences that haven't worked out and potentially dissolving, I want to talk about the early onset and when it is time to partner up, and when, sometimes you can go farther, faster together and get in somebody else's vehicle, or have somebody get in the vehicle with you and potentially split equity. We do it on our real estate deals where, someone brings us a deal and they want to partner with us, and we take some equity and to do that deal. But partnerships are marriages. Like a lot of them are long-term things. So when is it time to continue to go it alone and continue to just grind it out and work with yourself, maybe hire some people? Or when is it time to maybe leverage another person, another company, and partner with somebody to maybe get where you want to go?
Dude, such a good question. And it's going to have a couple layers to it, right? Because this is a tough one and we've both had experience in it. Good, bad, and different. I think that I'll tell you one thing I learned, and this was a recent lesson for me, is within a partnership in business, like not everything needs to be this, like, let's say I partner up with someone and we're going to go 50-50 on a venture, right? It doesn't always have to be 50-50.
Yeah.
And what we need to do is, guess what? Ask questions going into it and say, okay, is the person that I'm going to partner up with, is what they're going to be bringing to the table of 50% value to what we're doing? Right. And the answer to that is not always yes, right? Sometimes it's no. And if so, you need to be clear about that on the front end. Like there's a lot of deals that happen out there in business, in real estate, in the medical device industry, in selling, coaching, all the above. There's a lot of deals that happen where it's a network deal, right? So what I mean by that is person X introduces you to person Y. And you get into business with person Y on whatever that venture may be. Well, person X could just, they may get 10% in perpetuity for the introduction. Right. And you can put that into a contract. Like everything can be written into contracts and agreements, right? Which is a whole nother episode in and of itself. But just, you have to be clear about these things on the front end and manage those expectations anytime you're getting into a partnership. And I've made that mistake myself. And, again, I'm a transparent dude. Like there's been times when I'm not held up the end of my deal, right? In my time, my efforts, and been called on that and then answered to it. But it's typically because we weren't clear on exactly what we needed from each other in that partnership from the get. And there's a massive lesson to be learned there, right? Because, and I'll say something else too, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. While it's true that like you can do so much on your own, I also believe that there's power in numbers. You can only go so fast by yourself. Like regardless the venture, regardless the business, you can only go so fast by yourself. But that doesn't mean you have to have a 50-50 partnership, because it doesn't always make sense on what you're wanting to do. Right. And again, like going back to coaching, that's entirely true for that. Like, my business coach is like, you can try this on your own. I'll see you next year when you fail. Period. End of story. Do not go at anything on your own. So it doesn't mean you can't have your own venture, like your own vertical, whatever that may be. But have someone there as a coach to hold you accountable. And obviously you're going to pay for that, but it's an investment, like we've talked about, that will pay you massive dividends on the backside. So it's a complicated question with a complicated answer, but I think we need to dive a little bit deeper.
100%. And I think from a partnership standpoint, right, especially when you're getting started, right, I think a lot of people, they get into, you mentioned like this 50-50 thing, like it's really an ego thing in the beginning, and you need to be aware of where you are in your journey and realize that if you bring me a real estate deal and you just got started and you bring me a real estate deal and you want to go 50-50 and I need to underwrite it. I'm doing all the financial modeling, getting you all the due diligence stuff done. I'm bringing all the capital. I'm helping guarantor it with my balance sheet. Like I'm doing all that. I'm not going to split that deal 50-50 with you.
Right.
And that's not to say like, don't reach out and partner up, but be willing to take a percentage based on the value given, because what will happen is, let's say you get 10% of that deal, like you get that experience in riding that deal and you get all that experience that comes along with it. So the next deal that you go out and do, now you can do this part, this part, this part. Maybe you only need the money or the guarantoring and you can do the rest.
Yeah.
Right. And then you get 25% of the next deal, and then you get 50%. And then you get to a place where you don't even need any partners because you have the balance sheet, you can raise the money, and you have the experience now.
Yeah.
So be willing and be able to put your ego and your pride aside in the beginning when you do partner up. And I love that you said, go deal by deal. And I think that's really important, because if you get into a partnership too early where expectations are not set clearly, and you agree to this split, whatever it may be, I don't care if it's 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, it doesn't matter. You agree to this split, and then you find out that things aren't working. It is much more difficult to break to dissolve that partnership and all of the assets or things that it owns underneath it than it would have been just to go on a per deal basis. You know, if we're talking about like a venture or something, it's much easier just to do a joint venture on that particular thing than to create an entire LLC and an entire partnership that owns all of this stuff. Just create either a little LLC or a joint venture agreement for that specific thing. And what I would say is do a couple of those with somebody before you actually then take the leap.
Yeah.
Because if you sign on an LLC that's going to do this, we create this LLC, it's going to go out and buy all this real estate, right? And then you start to acquire real estate under that LLC. You are married to that, whoever else is on that LLC. Yeah. You are married to that person for 5, 7, 10 years, however long you guys are going to hold that asset. You're married to them. Yeah. And I have deals where there's people on that marriage that are not pulling their weight. Yeah. And it's more headache to get them off and buy them out than it is just to let them ride. And we end up, on some of them just letting them ride. Yeah. And it can be frustrating, but the thing about partnerships that I want to hit home, because I think we're not cautioning you to not do partnerships. What we are saying is proceed with caution and make sure the person lines up with your core values. Yeah. Because partnerships tend to work out, at least all of mine. All of my partnerships tend to work out when the person that I'm sitting across from or partnering with shares the same core values that I have. Yep. And that's really, really important, right? They have the integrity, they have the hard work, they have the stewardship, the personal, professional development that you want, right? They know that at their core, that things are going to work out because you share those core values. And that typically is a good sign that the partnership will flourish. Yeah. And the alternative is typically those, if they don't have the same core value alignment, typically those partnerships will end up, kind of going by the wayside. And it's a lot easier if you've just done some joint ventures and you figure that out prior to going official with them. Yeah. Going official and going heavy on a new deal. Yeah. 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 100%. Yeah. And, when it comes to partnerships that are potentially not working, right? Bad news does not get better with time. Yeah. And I was guilty of, kind of stringing along. I've been guilty of stringing along a partnership that I knew wasn't working because the split that we had and the roles and responsibilities, expectations were not clearly set. Yeah. And I was just kind of kicking the can down the road. Like, it's going to change. Things are going to change, and you have those tough conversations. I need more. And then, maybe it's you a little bit. And it just ultimately, like, don't waste a ton of time trying to fix something that's really broken beyond the point of fixing. Yeah. It's time there's a time where you will outgrow your potential partners. Yeah. And it's a good thing. It's okay. And you go find new ones. That I think is the key too, for people to know and to understand, is something you said, and that's, it's okay. Yeah. Right. Like, I think there's a very, very typical human response to change that is bad. Yeah. Right. So like, we all do it. Some of us are just better at moving through it than others. But like, anytime there's a change, the typical human response is like, oh, this is negative. This is bad. I'm not used to this. And then I'm going to make up all the stories as to why this is going to be bad, right? Fear sets in, et cetera. But the thing to know and to understand, and this is something that I talk about in my coaching sessions, is the end is secure, right? What do I mean by that? If you're a person that got into the entrepreneurial space to begin with,
there are outliers, of course.
Yeah.
But most of them are going to be able to pursue through that tough time, whether it's dissolving the partnership, whether it's a buyout, whether it's disagreements within the partnership. The thing I think to understand, and again, I had to learn this lesson myself, is that it's actually okay.
Yep.
And then what you'll find is a few years down the road, both partners or all three partners or all five, whatever the case may be, will typically look back and go, that happened for a reason.
Yeah.
And I'm better for it.
Always.
And so is he, so is she, etc. So just know that as you're going through it, because there are going to be people listening to this that are either, they know that it's coming, or they just went through it, or they're talking to, or hopefully some of our listeners are coaching others on the same type stuff, and just know like you can move through it. It's okay. It's probably going to end out for the better. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And don't be hesitant to partner up too. I mean, you know, with all that we're saying about dissolving, it's just because we've been through a lot from a business standpoint. We have a lot of business experience.
Yeah.
But I would not be where I am today if I hadn't partnered up. And I have a lot of lifelong partners that I trust implicitly that, you know, I will do, they call me and it's, what do you need? Like, that's it, you know, and you don't have to ask any more questions because we've already been through that, and we've been through, and you honestly, you have to go through some shit sometimes with some people to know that, you know, you have that level of trust. And we said earlier, like, you'd rather have 4 quarters than, you know, 100 pennies, right? There are a handful of people that I trust implicitly, you know, and business partners that I know will make the right decisions for our businesses. And I don't have to like double check that stuff. You know?
So key.
Yeah. It's, dude, man, I mean, necessary for growth. To do it alone, and entrepreneurship itself feels that you feel like you're on an island anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's more fun with people. Like, you know, I'm in a place in my life where, you know, Calvin and I were talking about this earlier. Calvin's behind the scenes on the video. So him and I were talking about this earlier, and he's to a level of success right now where he chooses who he wants to work with.
Sure.
And he's like, I get these opportunities for jobs and I just don't really want to work with the people. Like, it doesn't interest me. I don't know the people. Like, I don't want to hang out with them. And I think it's such a cool place to get to where you don't need the business. So you can choose and select who you want to work with. And when you get to that level, like, that's where you can really start to have fun with it. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm in a place now where I don't really need anybody. You know, and it's a good place to be because I don't need their money. So if they're a pain in my ass, like, I don't want your capital. I don't want your money.
You don't need it.
You know, I don't need it.
Be selective.
Whereas when you're getting started, you're kind of hungry for that opportunity and you're willing to you're willing to kind of eat shit to kind of get ahead. And there's a necessary part to that. But after you pay your dues and you earn your stripes, now I just do business with people I like. Like, someone brings me a deal and I don't like you, like, I'm not going to do that deal. I just, even if it's a great deal. I don't want to work with some people.
It's a great place to be.
Very low, very, you know, not many people can rub me the wrong way, but if you do, I'm not going to work with you.
Sure.
And if I like you, like, I'm going to try and figure out what else we can do. Like, we're talking about other businesses and trying to figure out what else we can do together, you know, besides just riffing on this podcast. Cause it's like, what else can we buy? What else can we do? What else can we invest in? Cause we enjoy doing business together. And that's what real partnerships are core value alignment to the point of, like, you guys are both just humming the same tune. And then you can go out and just do more together.
And the thing that's nice about the availability now with partnerships, depending on the space you're in, is you can have a virtual partnership, right? Like, you don't have to be, you know, you and I are both here in Nashville, specifically Murfreesboro right now, but you don't have to be in close proximity for that person in order to partner, right? And you can structure these partnerships however you want. But I've got a guy that went through some coaching stuff with me. Well, he's similar to you, but he's in the medical space. He's specifically in the biologics space. Awesome dude, like, grade A human being. And we just, like, hit it off. We went down to Dallas together for an event, and I was like, what are you doing? And doing this. What are you involved in? I'm doing this. And, like, he and I are spitballing different ideas all the time. He lives in Chicago. But he's a Zoom away, a phone call away, sometimes a text away, like, hey, this came across, what do you think? And, like, you can have a partnership with someone, again, in another state, right? That makes sense if you're in alignment on things, and you can grow with tremendous speed and have access to networks and access to rooms like we've talked about remotely.
Well, that's the amazing time that we live in. Like, that's why there's no excuses.
No,
you got no excuses.
You got a phone, you cannot be broke.
You got no excuses. It's funny, a quick story. So I had a partner that I was doing some coaching. He reached out to coach his sales team. Him and I hit it off. He's the business owner. Him and I hit it off. He lived in California, and we just, every time I would coach a sales team, he would get results. He would see results, and we would talk, and he'd be excited, and we'd do more. And I was like, hey, what are you working on in your business? I was asking him all kinds of questions, like, what are you working on? What are you excited about? And he's like, well, I'm actually opening up in this other market that I was really familiar with. It's where I grew up. And I was like, I'd be interested in going into business with you in there.
Yeah.
And like, we struck a partnership, an equity deal. And believe it or not, it wasn't 50-50. It actually ended up being 60-40, which is okay. I had the 40.
Yeah.
He was bringing the capital, some other stuff. I brought a lot of the grunt work, and ended up doing that year, did about 1.5 million in revenue in that business, in that market.
Yep.
And I still hadn't met him in person.
Wild.
So phone calls, Zoom, everything like that, did 1.5 million that year.
Awesome.
We didn't meet until the following summer.
Yeah.
We met for the first time in person. Like,
awesome.
And gave a big hug, and it was like, you can, it's an incredible world we live in, and you have, no excuse, not to. Information travels so fast.
Yeah, I think as we kind of wrap this one up, I think it's important to let the listeners know, or maybe remind them of, when we're talking about partnerships, like, it's not all negative.
Yeah.
But you can have these exceedingly high value partnerships remotely. You just talked about someone, you never met them before. It was a while before you met them, and you were doing over $1 million in revenue with someone that you hadn't shaken their hand.
Yep.
Right. So the point being, like, you can move with speed with the right partnerships all over the place. Like, it's limitless.
Yep.
But I think one key note before we wrap is, in order to do that, you have to have built that brand, the brand being you, right? Like, I always tell my coaching clients, like, what you represent as a person is far more important than what you're selling.
Yeah. That's the core values right there.
Core values.
That's your
Correct.
brand.
Right. That is your brand.
You represent.
You are your brand.
Yeah.
And I don't believe those opportunities come in front of you unless you've developed a brand that is worthy of that opportunity.
That's correct.
Right. So in that case, take the partnership.
Yeah.
Right. But just in the other things we're talking about, just be measured in the approach and think about it as you go into partnerships, and really evaluate what each person is bringing to the table and make it make sense for everyone. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Setting expectations up front avoids difficult conversations later on.
Correct.
Far too many people. And also think about, what's in it for the other person too.
Yeah.
Like, tactical, we talked about sales, tactical empathy, like understanding, if I'm coming to you with an opportunity, how are you going to view that opportunity, and what do I bring to the table, and how do you view what I bring to the table, and how are you going to potentially value what I bring to the table from a monetary standpoint? Because that's going to allow me to position myself better in a negotiation with you.
Right.
Is kind of figuring out what's in it for you.
Yeah.
So, but leverage partners, man.
Yeah.
You can go fast.
Go faster.
Far.
Yep.
Go fast, go far with partners. Don't do it alone. There's no need to.
Yeah.
Doing things together is much better. Set expectations early. I think covered a lot about partnerships.
Yeah.
Why they're beneficial, what to avoid, pitfalls. Partner up, guys.
Yeah. That's right, man. Let's go.